Okay, gentlemen at DDC, what's your name, please?
Barry Fitzgerald Chamblas II.
Thank you. And this would be, sir, you've got, looks like a traffic ticket where you missed a court date. When you missed that date, a judge issued an arrest warrant for you. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford an attorney, the court will provide one for you. Do you understand those rights? Sir, I can hear you.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. This would be ticket number 173376961 with a charge of no insurance misdemeanor. It's a misdemeanor charge, sir. Maximum penalty you face is up to 93 days in jail and or $500 fine. I'm going to set aside the arrest warrant, enter a not guilty plea on your behalf, and give you a personal bond. Next court date is a pretrial, April 23, in front of Judge Jones here in 36th District Court. And we've got Judge Williams with us. How can, what case are you on, Your Honor?
I don't know. They told me to zoom in.
Okay, Mr. Vincent?
It isn't any of mine, Judge.
It's mine. It's Philip Dorsey.
Philip Dorsey?
Yeah.
Okay. This
All right, let's
454 the 2020.
yeah, Dorsey looks like he's got two files here. Do you want to take him, or do you want me to finish up with Mr. Chamblas first?
You do yours first. I'm fine. I'll wait.
And Mr. Chamblas, the case today is case 24044445, State of Michigan versus Barry Fitzgerald Chamblas II, counsel.
Judge, always a pleasure. Steve Vincent for the people.
And yes, Your Honor, Brandon Byrd on behalf of Barry Chamblas, my client waives his right to the formal reading, was advised his constitutional rights, and will stand mute.
Court will enter not guilty plea on your client's behalf as to bond, please.
Judge, just a couple of interesting points I want to mention to the court. I'm sure you read the allegations. I know you always do. This had to do with car keys. This defendant was trying to get the car keys from allegedly his wife. His wife wouldn't give him the car keys. This defendant doesn't even have a license to drive. So this whole incident was about car keys to get into a car unlawful. Now, with all of that being said, Judge, it's being charged as a DV. There were apparently some observable injuries. Apparently, his wife's arm was swelled up, and he ransacked apparently his house because he lives with his wife. However, there are no priors, Judge. So therefore, we're not going to be objecting to a personal bond at this time. Just no contact, at least with the wife and the residents through the pendency of this case.
Thank you. Counsel?
31-year-old lifelong resident, Your Honor, 6 children, employed. Hopefully keep his employment to keep on taking care of his children. Understands there's nowhere, he's not going to be able to have contact with the complaining witness. Respectfully won't object to the personal bond.
Does he have somewhere else to live?
Mr. Chamblas, where will you be living? You're not going to be able to live on the Fisher address. Where will you go? Just state who will you be going with. We're on YouTube right now, and I'd rather not have you put an address on.
I will be living with my mother.
All right, sir, while this case is pending, you are not to possess a firearm, any other dangerous weapon. You have no contact with Ms. Michaud, and you are not to go to the Fisher address for any reason at any time. Is all that clear to you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Step bond of $10,000 personal. Next court date is a pre-trial, April 15, in front of Judge Garrett here in 36th District Court. Thank you, sir. You can step aside.
And I apologize, Your Honor. I missed the pretrial date. If I could just have that one more time.
April 15, 1/5, tax day.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
And DDC, if we can get Philip Dorsey next, Judge Williams is going to handle that case.
Black lamb, Joe.
Your name, sir?
Billy Dorsey, Florida.
All right,
Thank
this
you.
is State of Michigan versus Philip Dorsey, the fourth case. Strike the case 240560401. And second here. Case 24056100501. Today is the date set for arraignments on the warrant.
Your Honor,
Yes.
that's not the other case. That's another pending case. His case today is the 24 case as well as 23-4567801.
Which of the 24 cases am I calling?
You call the correct one, the first one, 24.
Okay, the larceny.
They're both larcenies. It's 24-560-8401 and 23-04567801. Those are the ones we're dealing with at this moment.
One is the refusal to fix arson.
Okay. Parents.
Your Honor, Philip Dorsey, report. Waive the formal reading statute.
Wrong at, bro. I see his statements.
All right. Ms. Coy, you want to put your appearance on? I'm sorry.
Lisa Boyle appearing on behalf of the people.
Takes a lot around this.
All right. Today is the day set for an arraignment on the warrant. Ms. Coy, what are you asking for?
Your Honor, I'm asking for the bonds to remain the same. On the 24-056-8401, that's a larceny motor vehicle, larceny firearm. That bond presently is set at $10,000 cash surety for a capias before Judge Jefferson on March 22nd of 24. And that he had the allegations he stole a gun and an iPad from a delivery man's car. It was on video and he confessed to the taking. He also had, I'm going to just make my argument and then Mr. Reagan can continue on with his. I'm also asking on 23-04567-801. That's a fingerprint refusal, 1,010% to remain in place. That was issued by Judge Bryan on March 20th of 24 for a capias. In that case, that he refused to give over his fingerprints on the arrest for an MDP personal property, which is currently pending before the Honorable Deborah Thomas in the Third Circuit Court. He had a capias on that matter on March 22nd, 24 for AOI. And in that case, he also had a capias in December 18th of 24 for preliminary exam. And then he also has, as you had mentioned, pending another larceny from a firearm in a motor vehicle, felony firearm. That bond was set at $10,000 personal on March 15th, and that's scheduled for exam on the 27th. In that case, he also allegedly broke into a complainant's Tahoe and stole her 9mm weapon. There were cameras in her garage that he could be viewed on those cameras. So for this matter, Your Honor, I'm asking for those capias bonds to remain in place since he has 4 open cases, and they're very serious. He's stealing weapons from people's cars. And he's also refusing, when he gets into custody, he's refusing to comply with the orders from the officers, and that he doesn't show up on his case over at Third Circuit as well. So I'm asking for the bonds to remain in place. And if he does make a bond, I'm asking for a tether, house arrest.
All right, Mr. Reagan.
Judge, Mr. Dorsey had court last Wednesday and last Friday. He missed court, Judge, unfortunately. And I'm going to be honest with you, he's homeless right now, Judge, and he he's having some difficulties with his life. And that's no excuse, Judge, for the allegations that we see in these complaints. But I just want to be forthright, Judge. So I just want to let the court know what's going on. He's 27. Trying to find a place to stay, to get himself together. And, I'm just going to be straightforward with the court, Your Honor. I'm not going to beat around the bush. They really don't have a good experience not making the court. Outside of that, his resources.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Outside of his lack of resources.
Okay. All right, give me one moment. And I apologize. I just want to make sure I got the wrong cases. I took 3 stabs at this and I kept getting the wrong one because the other ones aren't up to date, I guess. Some of these are bonds have not been violated because they have upcoming court dates. So I just want to look at one more thing.
Your Honor, I'm not seeing a capias on the file ending in 084.
That's what
I
I
may be
was
mistaken.
that's kind of what I was checking.
In which case?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, pardon?
The larceny case ending in 084.
That one, it showed a failure to appear on 3/22. That's where I
Right.
saw.
Okay. Maybe I've got an old register of actions. Mine ends at 315.
084. 084. My last KPS date was the 22nd. Was that Friday?
Friday.
Okay. Was he in custody on Friday?
No.
Okay. All right. As to case 2456084, having a chance to review the file, understanding that Mr. Dorsey was given a personal bond on this matter, while I believe there were still open matters at that point. There is a flight history or a history of not being able to show up for court. And I am going to keep the bond the same to ensure that Mr. Dorsey makes this next hearing date. As to case 234567801, that matter has a $1,000 10% bond. I am going to amend that to a 1,000 personal while this matter is pending. All right, Mr. Dorsey, you have 2 dates coming up for these matters. The first is before Judge Jefferson. Do we have a new PCC date? Because I have the last entry I have is the arraignment on the warrant today.
The next date on the Jefferson case is April 4 for probable cause and April 10 for preliminary exam. And Judge, what's the amount of the bond that you're keeping in place on that case?
I think it's a $10,000 cash bond.
Okay.
And that's intentionally unaffordable. Or cash or surety.
Uh-huh.
And on the misdemeanor, I'll reduce it to a personal, 1,000 personal. Now,
What's the date on the misdemeanor?
what's that?
Date on the misdemeanor?
The date on
It's going to be May 21.
May 21. We got to call and get a earlier date before Judge Bryant. It's too long for a pretrial date for somebody in custody. Yeah, that date's not going to work. It's going to be within 2 weeks. Before we conclude, I see a couple of other matters that are still down here. It looks like they still have dates before Judge Jefferson. Since Mr. Dorsey is in custody, I'm assuming that the jail is going to bring him to those dates. It looks like this Thursday appears before Judge Jefferson on another matter. just as a heads up. All right. Well,
And, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I got nothing further. What else am I missing? Judge Boyer, if you got anything else for me.
I think that's it. In terms of your involvement, I do have some traffic matters I'm gonna go over with them and set a new date for.
All right. Thank you very much. Give me a call if you guys need me.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Always.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, sir, give me 1 second. I'm gonna go over some traffic matters with you. As soon as I finish up this other paperwork.
You want to? Oh, come here. Oh, he's working on the record. Okay.
6, 7, 8. All right, sir. So it looks like you missed some traffic dates as well. When you miss those dates, a judge issued an arrest warrant for you. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford an attorney, the court will provide one for you. Do you understand those rights, sir? EDC, are you muted on your end?
What?
Understand those rights, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. First ticket is you, 575-98120, with a charge of loitering on public private property / trespassing. Then we've got ticket P 1092424, possession of drug paraphernalia, and P 1452603, loitering. These are all misdemeanor charges. Maximum penalty you face on each is up to 93 days in jail and or $500 fine. I'm gonna set aside the arrest warrants, enter a not guilty plea on your behalf, and give you a personal bond. Your next court date is a pretrial in front of Judge Sherman on April 22nd here in 36th District Court. Thank you, sir. You can step aside.
Oh, I fucking put toe. Oh.
Got him.
And just a heads up, Your Honor, we were told that number 19, Darren Price, is not in the Detroit Detention Center.
Thank you. And good afternoon, sir. What's your name, please?
Sanchez Blunt.
Thank you. Mr. Blunt, you've got some traffic matters we're going to deal with first. Where you missed some court dates. When you miss those dates, a judge issued an arrest warrant for you. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford an attorney, the court will provide one for you. Do you understand those rights, sir?
Sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, give me 1 minute, and I will give you a new court date where you can hopefully resolve all of those matters at one time. Okay. First ticket is P 1186462 with charges of improper plates. Yep. And ticket P 1190800, charge of driving while unlicensed and improper plates. P 1291287, driving with revoked license, no insurance, misdemeanor. Ticket P 1294476, no insurance, misdemeanor, driving while license not valid. P 1435382, driving with revoked license and no insurance, misdemeanor. and P1484009, driving with revoked license and no insurance misdemeanor. Sir, these are all misdemeanor charges. Maximum penalty you face on each is up to $500 fine and or 93 days in jail. I want to set aside the arrest warrants, enter a not guilty plea on your behalf, and give you a personal bond. Your next court date is a pretrial April 22 in front of Judge Gansey here in 36th District Court. Now, your more serious case today is case 24-056-398, State of Michigan versus Sanchez Blunt. Counsel.
Samuel A. Ragman for the people, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Brandon Byrd on behalf of Sanchez Blunt. My client waives his right to the formal reading, was advised his constitutional rights, and will stand mute.
Yeah, people are asking for $25,000, 10% bond, and are also asking for a GPS tether with home arrest at a different location. Very, very assaultive matter. The complainant stated that on March 23rd, 2024, she went into the bedroom where the defendant was sleeping, had noticed that he had urinated on himself. She woke up the defendant. With that, he became...
Lives with his girlfriend. At least lives with his girlfriend. He does have an alternate location to stay at, Your Honor. His children, 30
contact off the ground, Your Honor. He then took the complainant's cell phone and fled the location on his bicycle. And there was a witness that saw everything that he did, Your Honor. So very the conviction, very, very matter. And so we're asking for the $25,000, 10% bond, GPS tether, home arrest, Your Honor, and no contact. Thank you.
Sorry, Your Honor. 34-year-old lifelong resident indicates to us that he has 2 children, lives with his girlfriend. At least lives with his girlfriend. He does have an alternate location to stay at, Your Honor. Respectfully indicates to us that the only thing he has for prior criminal history is a DUI, not on probation or parole, no pending cases. Unfortunately, he's unemployed, well below the 200% poverty guidelines. Any amount of bond is going to be like a remand to my client. He does understand that he's going to have to stay somewhere else. He does have an alternate residence to stay at, Your Honor. We're not accepting any of these allegations to be true. One thing I noticed, they did mention a witness at the end, which kind of confused me because there's no mention to where that witness was at, how that witness knew, where that witness observed, where that witness observed the alleged assault, Your Honor. So I'm not sure what exactly that witness actually witnessed. But we're going to ask the court potentially for a personal bond in this matter. I do understand this is assaultive. We're not accepting any of these allegations to be true. But if they are to be true, and we just took them for argument purposes only, which we do, just for argument purposes only, this seems like it might be an isolated incident, especially my client went 34 years of his life, never showed, at least doesn't have any criminal history that's assaultive in nature, Your Honor, in which is alleged that he woke up to his sleep to an embarrassing situation, and it might have spiraled out of control, allegedly. Like I said, we're just saying that for argument purposes only, to take this hearsay report just as true for argument purposes only. But we're going to ask this court potentially for a personal bond in this matter, Your Honor.
Your Honor, if I just may add something. On 5/7/22, he was arrested for assault and battery, warrant requested. On 2/13/23, he was arrested for assault, and somehow it said $400 paid. I don't know what out what that even means. On 7/14/23, he was also arrested for assault warrant requested. So he's had some assault arrested, but no convictions that I'm aware of yet.
And Your Honor,
And what-
respectfully, it's saying warrant, it's saying warrant requested, but those, I'm not even sure if he has a case for those matters. I mean, that's requesting a warrant, and it's been ample enough time for the prosecution to bring forth a warrant on these charges. And we're not here on
Okay,
the matters on which you can get arrested.
Councils, because you both of you guys do this a little too much, where Mr. Ragnar wants to give me every arrest in a person's history, and then you want to argue that those aren't convictions and I shouldn't pay attention to convictions. And this court's been around long enough to know the difference between arrests and convictions. But what we do have here are some very serious allegations. What was the people's request for the bond amount?
It was quite a while ago, yeah. It's $25,000, 10% bond, 25,000 cash, 10% bond, and GPS tether home arrest.
Thank you, sir. While this case is pending, you are not to possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon. You're to have no contact with Ms. Monroe whatsoever. That means don't go to her house, don't call her, don't text her, don't hit her up on social media, don't have any friends of yours contact on your behalf. You're not going to go to the Byrd Road address for any reason. You will be, should you post bond on GPS tether on house arrest. And what's going to set bond at $20,000, 10%. That'll give you a bond redetermination hearing in 2 days' time on Wednesday, March 27th, in front of Chief Judge McConico. Further dates will be April 2nd, probable cause conference, and April 9th, preliminary exam, both in front of Judge King. All of that here in 36th District Court. Thank you, sir. You can step aside.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will pay attention to those words you advice you mentioned.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. What's your name, please?
Thomas Stone.
Thank you. Mr. Byrd, you still need time on Stone? Or are you ready?
No, we're ready, Your Honor.
All right. This is case 24-056-393, State of Michigan versus Thomas Freeman Stone, counsel.
Thanks, Judge Stevenson, for the people.
Yes, Your Honor. Brandon Byrd on behalf of Thomas Stone. My client waives his right to formal reading, was advised his constitutional rights, and will stand mute.
Court will enter not guilty plea on your client's behalf as to bond.
Judge, to expedite things, we're asking 30,000 cash or surety, tether, some type of monitorization. Judge, defendant just got off of parole less than 4 months ago for 2 convictions of CSC third. Since getting off of parole, he's managed to somehow have an individual file a PPO and serve it against him, as well as this case, Judge, allegedly where we have punching, strangling, sending the individual to the hospital as a direct result of injuries.
And so what monetary amount are you asking for?
I was asking 30,000 cash or surety, Judge. Defendant has a very, very substantial assaultive history. I mean, he's at his, I think it's a DV third right now, aggravated DV in 13, followed by another conviction. Just a lot.
Mr. Byrd?
Your Honor, all we have is these reports in front of us, and I think it's important to look for cooperating evidence to go with it, because people always could say something about another person and just have them in jail. And it seems like it does happen exceptionally when there's a female involved and a man involved. It seems like the man goes to jail mostly. And after reading this report, I do notice that first of all, we could take a look at my client, Your Honor, and see that my client isn't a small statured man. He's not a small statured man, Your Honor. And he's being blamed of hitting somebody multiple times and strangling somebody, putting his hands around and strangling somebody in the neck and punching them several times. And we have no injuries observed. We see that she did go to the hospital, stable condition. That doesn't have anything in the report about a hospital record coming back where she had bruises, scrapes, had to be treated for anything else, Your Honor. So right now we just have he say, she say, in a situation in which, due to allegations, it seems like if the complainant was mad, the defendant supposedly had the keys to the vehicle, in which refused to give up, and that's how the argument ensued. So it wasn't the defendant starting the argument. It wasn't the defendant going towards it. The location where it happened at is actually at the defendant's mother's house. He didn't go looking for this individual, Your Honor, to find trouble. And the complaining witness does stay far away, and I know that's something that the court would want to know. But the complaining witness stays in a whole nother city, far away, in which this began over keys, Your Honor. Began over keys, in which an argument ensued, and the complainant became mad and made these allegations against my client. But a little bit about my client, Your Honor. 30-year-old. Lifelong resident, lives with his mother, Your Honor. He was forthcoming about his criminal history. Not trying to hide his criminal history, Your Honor. He understands he was convicted of those things and he served a sentence on those things. And he's not on probation or parole right now. Doesn't have any pending cases besides that one. Besides this one, works for a temp service, but well below the 200% property guidelines. Any amount of money is going to be like a remand to my client. As stated earlier, Your Honor, it's not going to be a problem with him staying away from the complaining witness. He understands if the complaining witness comes to his house and causing trouble, then he needs to call the police and not answer the door. But this didn't happen with her while he was out with her. This actually happened at his family's house, which it began over, which is alleged, the argument began over the complaining witness mad because she couldn't get her keys, and then made these allegations in which no injuries were observed. So we respectfully ask this court for a personal bond in this matter, Your Honor.
So I've got a couple of questions. Number one, I've got plaintiff and defendant both living on the Greenfield address and being married. No mention of mom's house. And then number two, to be clear, you mentioned several times that the defendant was upset about complainant was upset about not getting the keys from the defendant, but you failed to mention the part where he comes home intoxicated. I find that to be somewhat disingenuous. But can you clear up that Greenfield address for me, either of you?
I have what you have.
The address, that's why that we spent some more time with our client on that matter, Your Honor. And our client indicated to us that that's where him and his mother stays. The complainant, I don't want to mention where the city where the complainant stays, but it's a whole nother city in Michigan that's away from this Greenfield address.
Yeah, Mr. Benson.
I mean, Judge, the only thing I have a gal who doesn't have any criminal history, and we have an individual in front of us who's been, convicted of two crimes against children that he ended up just getting off of parole for. Literally, just got off of parole not even 6 months ago. And since that time, somebody's taken a PPO out against him, and now he has these allegations. I don't know, Judge. You know, if I was in the defendant's shoes, and this is just me, I would be steering clear of everything, let alone coming home drunk and allegedly, you know, having to deal with these types of allegations. And then the individual had to go to the hospital. So
Intoxicated doesn't mean drunk, Your Honor.
yeah, the complainant doesn't have any criminal history whatsoever.
So how do I feel comfortable with the complainant, as you say, Mr. Byrd, living in another city when I've got a police report that says they're married and they both live at that house?
Your Honor, I can only reiterate what my client said to us. But if the court's not comfortable with that, the court's not comfortable until independent verification is made, in which my client can go to. He does have another family member that's willing to that's willing to take him in during this matter, during the pendency of this case.
The court does find the allegations to be assaultive in nature, completely, what's the word I'm looking for? Inappropriate for what's in the report.
Judge, I was just going through the EMS run reports, and apparently what was told to the dispatcher was that she was actually fighting with him in her apartment. So that's what I have.
Okay.
And Your Honor, if I could respectfully just request a copy of those EMS reports.
Yeah, you got it. I can do it after the docket. I'm an officer of the court. I'm not making it up.
No, I
But you
trust
can
you.
have them
I trust you, but I would just like that information in the beginning so we know how to prepare.
Wait, hold on for a second. I wasn't using that in the beginning. I'm just trying to clear this up. That's all.
Gotcha. Thank you. I understand, Mr. Vince.
Right. All right. So here's the deal. Sir, while this case is pending, you're not to possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon. You have no contact with Miss Stone whatsoever. Don't call her. Don't go to her house. Don't text her. No social media with her. Nothing. If Greenfield addresses her house, you're definitely not to go back there for any reason. If you can satisfy this court before the next court hearing that the Greenfield house is you and your mother's, then take that up with the judge at your next hearing. But for now, you're not to go back to Greenfield. You will be on GPS tether on house arrest, and court will set bond at $15,000 cash as surety. And next court date will be a bond redetermination hearing Wednesday, March 27 in front of Judge McConico. Further dates are April 2nd, probable cause conference, April 9, preliminary exam, both in front of Judge King. All of that's here in 36th District Court. Thank you, sir. You can step aside.
Thank you, Judge.
Good
afternoon. What's your name, please?
My name is Deon Anderson.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Anderson, you've got a misdemeanor matter we're going to deal with first, where you missed the court date. When you missed that date, a judge issued an arrest warrant for you. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford an attorney, the court will provide one for you. Do you understand those rights, sir?
Sir.
All right, so this will be ticket U 659-406-23, charge of entering vacant building without owner's permission. It's a misdemeanor charge. Maximum penalty you face is up to 93 days in jail and or $500 fine. I'm going to set aside the arrest warrant, enter not guilty plea on your behalf, give you personal bond. Your next court date is a pretrial April 22 at 1:30 p.m. in courtroom 533 here in 36th District Court. Your other matter today is case 24-056403, State of Michigan versus Deon Anderson. counsel.
Thanks, Judge Stevenson, for the people.
Yes, Your Honor. Brandon Byrd on behalf of Deon Anderson. My client waived his right to the formal reading, was advised his constitutional rights, and will stand mute.
Court will enter a not guilty plea on your client's behalf as to bond.
Respectfully, Judge Eskin, 10,000 cash or surety with monitorization. We have a defendant right now who just ended up pleading to an R&O. And that was roughly about 3 months ago. And apparently that was deferred under HIDA. And then he had to spend time in jail, as well as got probation for 1.5 years. And not even 3 months into probation, we have an R&O in front of you where allegedly he assaulted a police officer. And this isn't just the resisting part. This is the assaulting part. And then how did the police come to this situation and then having it develop to where the defendant ended up getting charged with the R&O? Allegedly, the defendant beat up his brother and his brother's face was bloody. And then the defendant takes off when the police come. And then the police catch him. And then he wasn't listening to the police after they tried to detain him. And then once they detained him, once he couldn't use his arms, he ended up using his legs to kick the police officers. Judge, unfortunately, I don't know what else to do other than to ask you what I'm asking you for, because it's clear he's defied the probationary terms because he just pled to this type of charge. And now we have not just the resisting or obstructing, we have the assaulting part of an R&O. So respectfully, Judge, we're going to be asking for that cash with monitorization.
Thank you.
If you give me one moment, please, Your Honor. 19-year-old lifelong resident, Your Honor. Indicates to us that he is on probation. Was forthcoming about having a prior criminal history. And unfortunately, he's unemployed. Any amount of bond is going to be like a remand to my client. Not sure what's going on with the assault and battery. Please put your hand down, Mr. Anderson. I advise you not to talk about the facts of the case over this video, because everything you say is being recorded and could be used against you. The only questions that I would advise you to ask is about your bond and bond conditions. And sorry about that, Your Honor, but any amount of bond is going to be like remand to my client at this point. I do understand he's on probation. Well, at least he's on probation for resisting an obstruction charge, and it had that happen in the past. But as I state so many times, Your Honor, there is a long history of what's going on between the police and communities such as Detroit, Your Honor. Long history of abuse and a long history of what's going on. Now, I'm not saying that gives anybody the right to fight with an officer, and I'm not saying that happened at this point because I haven't been able to see the video, and I'm not saying every officer is bad because that's not true either. But I'm saying I understand the history. I understand the history and how people feel, especially with it being on social media and being televised right now. So right now, I do understand we have a refusal to prosecute and somebody that says they don't want to go forward with the charges. That's because we don't even know if it was his fault in the beginning. We don't know if he was refusing to prosecute because it was a situation in which my client had to defend himself. We don't know that at all. And that's not a charge that's on here. So I'm just asking the court to please not consider or please not hold too much weight to what's going on with that assault and battery, but the resisting obstruction charge, Your Honor. As stated earlier, I do understand it's a sad history between the police and communities such as Detroit, Chicago, Los Angeles, Black communities to be exact, Your Honor. And respectfully, we're going to ask this court for a personal bond. And as I stated earlier, I'm not saying that we have just a bunch of rogue officers. I'm not saying that that's the truth, but I'm saying with how it's televised today and the things that these kids is watching on social media and on TV about police killing and brutally beating black males, and the history that goes back since the sheriffs were created to catch slaves. So respectfully, Your Honor, we're gonna ask this court for a personal bond.
Are we gonna take it all the way back to slavery, Mr. Byrd?
We are, because that's how deep the pain runs.
Okay, I just like to put something really quick on the record. That was completely misplaced and inappropriate. But with that, I digress.
So more important to me, Mr. Byrd, is despite the fact that his younger brother apparently lives at the same house on Ewald Circle, doesn't want to proceed, I don't think they should be necessarily near each other either. So does your client have anywhere else to live?
One moment, yeah. Mr. Anderson, you're not going to be able to live on Ewald Circle. Where are you going to be living, or who will you be living with? And don't state your full address on the record, because we are on YouTube right now and it's being televised.
I can stay with my uncle.
Okay. You know, at some point, Mr. Byrd, and again, we recognize that these are mere allegations at this point, but at some point, you're under arrest. Just be arrested. Why are you fighting with handcuffs on and multiple officers and kicking and, you know, it's nonsense. It's utter nonsense. Demonstrates a lack of ability to control one's emotions, control one's physical actions under circumstances that clearly suggest that it's time to just get in the back of the squad car and leave the fighting for lawyers in court. So you're to have no assaultive contact with Deon Anderson. You have no contact at all with the Ewald Circle address. You will be on a GPS tether on house arrest. Time you start thinking about how to conduct yourself so that you don't find yourself in situations like this again. You're a young man, you got a lot of life ahead of you. Fine is $20,000 personal. Next court date is April 3rd, probable cause conference, April 10, preliminary exam, both in front of Judge Sabri. Thank you, sir. You can step aside.
Thank you, Your Honor.